In a surprising turn of events, Wizards of the Coast has announced that they are creating 2 League of Legends secret layers. And these secret layers are going to be based on the television series Arcane.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered to discuss 2 brand new secret layers, and to me, this announcement was very surprising. You may recall that we were told months ago that we were going to be getting Fortnite secret layers in the future, and I fully expected that to be the first video game style secret layer that we were ever really going to see. But fast forward to today, and all of a sudden, we have 2 League of Legends secret layers. Now, these are based on a game, based on a television show, so I guess it's somewhat different than Fortnite, but overall, I was genuinely shocked. And just to let you know, we are in crazy secret layer territory. There's going to be a Superdrop announced that's going to release on the 29th. More details are coming out later today about it. These 2 layers will be a part of it. The secret layer I showed off yesterday that I got sent in that video will also be a part of it. I'll leave a link to that at the end of the video. But anyways, let us dive in to the cards, and I'll try and explain a little bit of the concept overall of the show as well, because I only know a little bit as we go through it. So we're going to be starting off with Path to Exile. All right, so this is a 1 white instant. Exile target creature its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So this is the new age Swords to Plowshares. If you remember Swords to Plowshares from yesterday's video, obviously they just get life in return. Being able to give them a land and speed them up can definitely be worse than using a Swords to Plowshares, but if they don't play basic lands, then this is strictly better than a Swords to Plowshares. A very, very potent card. The flavor text says, Jace, I gotta laugh that the first card we're looking at has somebody named Jace, but he's even crazier than our Magic Jace because he's got a Y shoved into his name. So, Jace Talus, you are accused of illegal experimentation and endangering the citizens of Piltover. And that's said by Cassandra Kiraman. Now, I know nothing about League of Legends. I've never played it. I've never watched the show Arcane, so I had to quickly look some things up. The idea behind the show, the story that we're going to be dealing with, is essentially the haves and the have-nots. So you have one city that is like a paradise. They have everything. It's amazing. And then you have another city, which is essentially just like a slum city where everybody's hard scrabbling and trying to get by and survive. So if I'm not mistaken, Piltover is the paradise. This guy is basically, I don't know, being charged by the government for something. And you can see he's standing there in this kind of shadowed like scenarios. He's on this mosaic floor. The shadows are all around him. Light shining down. Now, I do want to point out that as far as I understand, these are legitimate screenshots from the television show. And I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of doing things like that. The game Force of Will did that with the Ghost in the Shell set, and I couldn't stand it, especially since the screenshots they used were really bad. At least this doesn't look quite as bad for a screenshot, but it also kind of explains why we're getting these secret layers before the Fortnite ones. It feels to me, in some ways, like this is a bit of a rush job, to be real. All right, so moving on to the next card, we've got Unstable Harmonics. So this is Rhystic Study. This is one of those cards where this counts as a Rhystic Study whenever you're playing normal Magic. You can't play 4 copies of Rhystic Study and 4 copies of Unstable Harmonics. You can only have one or the other. They are the same thing. All right, so this is a Rhystic Studies reprint, 1 blue and 2, for an enchantment that says whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. It's kind of crazy to think that Rhystic Study actually started out as a card, like it was a common from Prophecy that nobody cared about. It was worthless. And then slowly over time, people realized, wait a minute, every time somebody casts a spell, me getting to draw a card is pretty wild. Or just making all their spells cost 1 more is pretty wild. So the card became respected and ultimately ended up getting moved up to rare, because that's what happens. Whenever Wizards make something that's common, and then people go, oh, this is great. They're like, oh, you know what? Actually, that's a super rare card. It's like, come on, get off of it. Who are you kidding? Anyways, solid card. Flavor Text says, I believe I've discovered something truly incredible. A way to harness magic through science. That right there illustrates why he was being pulled in front of that government agency or whoever it is that's in charge, the governing body, whatever you want to call it. Clearly, he has found a way to tap into magic using science, right? So it's like, I have scientific magic. Oh, what's that expression? Any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic. I mean, I'm going to be real. That's how I feel about my cell phone. It feels like magic. I'm like, well, I can just call everybody and broadcast myself to the world. It's wild. But anyways, clearly he's messing around with forces that the people of, what was it, Piltover? Piltdown? Something like that. One or the other. The people of the place he lives in, the rich, snobby elites, they don't like it. This artwork is pretty wild. I have no idea what's going on here. I guess this must be Jace doing his magical discoveries. It's so hilarious that this focuses on a character named Jace when Magic has a Jace as well. But it's some wild artwork. You've got what looks like constellations set in the backward. Like you got all this light flowing around. There's a ring of light in the center with like a star in the middle. You've got what are presumably multiple copies of this dude floating up in the air with all kinds of little contraptions and stuff. It actually, honestly, is kind of making me interested in checking out the TV show. I guess it's not. Is it Netflix? I don't know, man. I'm old school, okay? It doesn't matter where. You kids watch it on your Hulus and whatever else. I call it TV shows. Deal with it. Moving on. We've got Counterflux. 1 red, 2 blue, instant. This spell can't be countered. Counter target spell you don't control. Overload, 1 red, 2 blue, and 1. And if you don't know how overload works, if you pay the overload cost, you literally get to do it to every target that you could. So under normal conditions, you counter 1 spell you don't control. But if you overload it, every spell that's on the stack right now you don't control, boom, 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 they all get countered. The flavor text says, for a moment, it seemed as if Powder's invention had really worked. I don't know who Powder is. When I see the name Powder, I think of that guy who was covered in like white powder in that movie called Powder, where he just disappears at the end. Oh, spoiler! If you haven't seen the, 30-year-old movie Powder, just spoiled it on you, son. So you can see the artwork shows, I guess, a magical storm gone awry, I'm guessing. Somebody's been ejected from it. Are multiple people ejected? I can't tell if that's... I can see it's one person falling, but I don't know if that's a chair and other stuff. Don't have the full res artwork, but I am interested to see what's going on here. You know, I've discovered scientific magic, and then all of a sudden, like, oh no, magical storms are ruining everything, right? That's pretty crazy. So overall, I mean, Counterflux isn't a terrible choice as a card. It's like, all right, you know what, fine. That's like, clearly you've got multiple blue cards in this secret lair. There's never really a color balance to them. You can't expect that. I don't know really what they decided were going to be cards. I don't know if they picked like key moments for the story or if they just had some cards picked out and just kind of like shoved it together. Because like I said, this one feels quickly put together, right? It feels like a rush job. All right, and then we have the Hex Core, which I'm assuming is something important. So, a 4 casting cost artifact. This is a Thran Dynamo, okay? And it's interesting how certain cards have names specifically keyed to the show, and other cards are able to have their regular name, right? So, this is, I have to say, I love seeing old school cards redone with the new proper mana symbols. This looks way cooler than the circle 3 that you get on the old school Thran Dynamos saying tap for 3, right? I like that. So it's a 4 casting cost artifact that taps for 3 mana. That's a really good deal. The flavor text says, the power of the arcane too often finds itself in the hands of those foolish enough to think themselves its master. Okay, so the arcane, I guess, is some kind of collective, maybe? I'm not sure. This is kind of nebulous. But either way, you've got the Hex Core is a cool name for something. It makes you think of like a magical battery or like a magical supercomputer with all these crazy glyphs etched into it. Like, how much study and work would it take to make something like this? And I like it because when you look at it, your brain just goes, I don't know what that is, but it probably does something real cool and real powerful. So Thran Dynamo feels like a great choice. And if you're somebody who's watched the Arcane show, by all means, in the comment section, fill me in on these story moments and what's going on. Because ultimately, there's so much going on right now. I don't have time to go and check out the show in time for this. There's going to be more secret layers announced later today that I need to get into. So this is the end of the first secret lair, but like I said, we've got 2. So moving on to the second one, it is a basic land themed one. So this is going to be real simple. It's interesting how the artwork down here is just attributed to Riot Games, which are the people making this secret, or who make the League of Legends show, I should say. So you can see in this artwork, you have a somewhat, it's almost like a mishmash of Ravnica and Kaladesh when I look at it, right? You've got the really tall sort of like Ravnican style buildings, although they do have a more rounded futuristic feel as opposed to the old like European, more pointy style steepled buildings. Do you know what I mean? So it's got that Ravnica feel. It's got that Kaladesh aspect with the different airships floating by. And I like Zeppelins and airships. I don't like helicopters and like the concept of airplanes and stuff like that in Magic. But airships, Zeppelins and stuff, that falls into the realm of what I think is pretty cool. All right, so this is the plains. Then we've got the island, which, I mean, it's another viewpoint, right? At this point, you're just looking at the city from another angle, and you've got a skyship kind of, I assume it's docking. Either that, or it's just left the dock. It looks all right. I mean, you got it from the perspective of you're down on the ground, kind of looking up at it, you know? I assume that the scenery we're seeing is that Piltover place. I assume this is the Utopia, because it doesn't feel like the slum city is going to be full of airships and soaring beautiful buildings, right? I assume they're going to be kind of like Gunji, right? So moving on, we've got the swamp. Oh, here we go. Look at this. This is a little bit different. What are we even looking at here? So you've got a bunch of crazy phosphorescent purple mushrooms that seem to be growing up off of the rocks. Do they have anything to do with the magic? And then you've got like, oh, do you know what that looks like? It looks like a mud hut, kind of, right? If you look at it, it looks like it's somebody's home, and it's kind of formed out of just like mud and rock, maybe, but it's also kind of honeycombed and pockmarked. I don't know if this is supposed to be like the underground area of that Utopia town. I don't know if the other city that is the slum city is like directly underneath them, living off their scraps a la Battle Angel Alita or whatever, where they have that crazy like pipeline that just dumps their garbage back down to Earth and like pulls things that they want up off of the planet. So I don't know exactly where the positioning is, but this definitely feels like a underground dweller kind of location. This is where you're going to find the Chuds. You guys ever seen that movie? Chud? Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground, I think it was Underground Dweller, right? Anyways, this is where the Chuds hang out. So, I mean, it definitely is a nice contrast to the last 2 pieces of artwork we saw, where you had a quite nice looking city with the people in their airships, and it's bright and sunny and well lit, and here you have this dark gloominess, getting by, eating glowing mushrooms and living in a lump of rock. What a disappointing existence. All right, I mean, it fits for a swamp though. Moving on. We've got the mountain. Oh, cool. It's a forge. This looks all right, eh? You've got a gigantic forge. Oh, what? Dude, does that... Oh, neat. Okay, so it looks to me like this is a gigantic forge. You've got the open door with the roaring flames in there. But take a look at that massive anvil. As soon as I saw the opening, I'm like, wait a minute. Does the anvil actually flow inside of the forge? And you can see there's like a rail line under the anvil. So most likely this anvil goes directly into that gigantic flaming dome. That's awesome. This probably is also an underworld location, I'm guessing, just because it does feel kind of musty and sooty. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got this big roaring fire, but at the same time, it looks like being in there would be being in a kitchen fire, where you got all this smoke in the air. It looks like it'd be bad for your lungs and everything like that. And that's something you associate with like the lower class, stuck in worse conditions, don't have the money to live in the rich, happy place. So you just got to kind of deal with the situation as it is. And man, I wonder, like, you can feel the essence of stuffiness and heat that would exist inside there. And there's probably a lot of loud noise too, right? Like, you have the roar of the flames, the sound of the anvil moving in, the gigantic rotating gears in the background. This would be a very particular feeling you would get from being in this location. All right? And then we have the forest, which it looks pretty awesome to me. I like this. This is fun. It's like a treehouse kind of vibe where you got a big fat tree kind of growing off of a tower. Again, this one feels to me like it's probably in the Undercity just because the windows look kind of dingy and overgrown and everything. Who knows though? This could be some kind of nature location in the richer part. I just have these tiny little snippets to look at with no information based on the show. So it's pure theory. I'm sure some people will you idiot, that's Dr. Happy's Phantasmagory laboratory or something. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I do like it though. The artwork is fun and colorful, and I'm curious about it. So that wraps up the 2 secret layers that we were here to discuss. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Big thank you to all my patrons. I'll see you all for the next video. We're going to talk about some secret layers in the stream tonight as well. So goodbye for now.